that body that you're seeing there is the body that has given you every experience you've ever had. So what a thing to be grateful for, and not be like, oh, that's terrible. I don't, yeah, yeah, you gotta love it, really.
I have to admit, I was a little bit not nervous, but I proactively did not prepare because I wanted to have, even the conversation we had before was a pretty open conversation, but I really didn't want to be directive at all. I just wanted to let the conversation flow. But I wanted a chance to talk to you about the experience. I mean, from my perspective, but also from your perspective. And I definitely took a lot away from my time in the desert, that's for sure. And thank you very much for your role in that, because I appreciate that a lot.
Oh, thank you.
So, I mean, where to start? I could just, I could share how I felt in the moment, because that was one of the highlights for me, for sure, was the actual shoot amongst the creosote bushes in the sand. In the desert, because I'm going to say I absolutely surprised myself. I really didn't know what to expect of myself. Like I sort of knew what to expect of the shoot in the sense of what we were there for, the reason we were there, but I really did not have any expectations about how I was going to feel.
Yeah. As I said to you afterwards, you seemed very calm and present. You had said you felt nervous and it might be emotional and various things. And I just saw no sign of any of that. It was like, oh yeah, this is something I do all the time. Which was awesome.
One of the things when I tell friends about it, as I'm sort of slowly sharing what happened, I think the thing, and I don't know if you found this funny, but there's taking your clothes off and having pictures taken, that sort of, you're standing by a bush and you're telling me to do certain things, you're taking my picture. But as we would move, we'd do a series of photos, and then we're like, oh, maybe we should try walking down here. We were just walking and talking like normal people, except I didn't have any clothes on. And that was one of the things I was like, oh, wow, reflecting back on that. That's unusual, that I just felt like, just having conversation with Scott, chatting.
I know, it's so unusual and strange, and yet totally routine and normal,
Yeah.
Because what else would we do besides walk to the next place and talk? It's what you're doing all the time underneath the clothes. And at some point, we should talk more about what really brought you to the desert and to wanting to do this shoot. But whatever the reasons were, it seemed like, okay, this is it's a very challenging thing for you to do. You come out, you're in an unfamiliar place, you're with a person you don't know very well. And you talked about, you've lived most of your life in an urban environment. Just being naked outdoors is, you haven't had a lot of experience with, let alone in front of a man that you don't know very well, let alone taking pictures. It's all, there's all these levels of it, which is why it seems, all the more impressive that you were as calm and collected and really in the moment and enjoying the whole thing. That was my impression as you were.
I did feel very comfortable in my skin. And when we use that expression often, it just means like I felt really comfortable. I literally felt comfortable in my skin. And that was a pretty glorious and empowering feeling that I guess I hadn't thought. I guess I was trying not to have expectations, although I did share with you, I thought I was going to be shy and it would take me, a moment or two to warm up to the idea. once we got to the desert. And something happens when I took my shoes off and my socks off and I put my feet on the sand. And all of a sudden it was just like, boom, connected, good. Let's get going. Let's move forward. And then part of it, I think I somehow knew in the moment, and we had a really nice lead up to this too, right? So we had dinner, we talked, we share interests in books, in different TV series. Like, so we were starting to establish some rapport, which was just really, made me feel more comfortable. And in that moment where I suddenly realized, yep, I'm good to go, it somehow validated. I realized I was supposed to be there. I kind of was going on this gut instinct that this is the thing I should be doing. And if anybody tells me I shouldn't be doing it or I should be nervous about it, I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm just going to follow my gut. And in that moment, I thought, yeah, because this is right. This is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And that's an incredible feeling. I don't feel that very often. So, yeah. And something about having a witness. You're capturing images, but you're also somehow present as another human being as a witness. Yeah. And that was, I don't know why, but that was important too.
I think that is an important part of it, of having an experience like this. And so in a way, it might have been empowering in the same way to simply have a witness, but not necessarily a camera involved. But you have to have the camera involved, or else the whole thing wouldn't make sense and would never have happened. If it's, I'm glad you felt that way. That's what I was hoping for. I guess for me, this whole thing was very interesting because I just found it to be very different than other times when I've worked with somebody who is used to being photographed nude, or it's not the first time they've done it anyway. I mean, with you, I felt like the whole purpose that I was trying to serve was sort of to facilitate that experience of yours, much more so than the photographs that I was taking from my own interest or perspective. And that was fascinating. That really changed the whole way I was thinking about it. And then in a way, it sort of changed how I'm thinking about other things too in my photography. And I think I told you that, I had this thought that, boy, if part of the purpose of photography is so that, somebody will look at the image and sort of envision that experience, or at least wonder, oh, what would that be like? Would I ever do that? Or something like that. And in your case, it was like this whole other level, because you were somebody that might have just been a viewer of some images that I made. But now you're no longer that. You're actually out there having the experience itself. And so I was thinking how that whole experience you were having was really the work that was being created, right? But I was having it too, because for these reasons that I'm describing, it was kind of a new experience for me too. And so we were each experiencing something new, and we were kind of collaborators in that. And then the photographs were taken, and but if the work is really more the experience than the photographs themselves, then the work goes on, because the work still includes the subsequent process of looking at the photographs and, seeing them and seeing them for the first time versus seeing them over time. And you start to maybe think about them differently. And so the photographs themselves kind of take on different meanings. And I think that too is part of the sort of creative work that goes on, only now it's it's shifted more to you because you're the one that's looking at these images of yourself and trying to decide what you think of them.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we have spoken about before that I think is really important, you told me before the shoot started to make sure that I kept separate the experience of being in the desert and having photos taken, keep that separate from the photos and how I feel when I look at the photos.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two different things. And that was critical. That was a huge, and that I'm sure is also what took some of the weight off in that moment. I wasn't constantly thinking, oh God, how do I look? And what's happening? What is he seeing in the viewfinder? I just was oblivious.
Yeah.
I put my mind in being in the desert, and it was so beautiful. And there was nothing around us. It was pristine. It was gorgeous. So I really tried to hold on to that when you sent me the first 4 just sample photos. I tried really hard and I failed, but I kind of I went in and out. And I thought, oh God, and it's hard to look at some of these. And then I thought, no, but that doesn't take away. It's still a record. When I look at them, I try to remember how I felt as opposed to how I look. And then when you sent me the full set of images, it was really interesting because I sort of went through them first really fast. And in my head, automatically I was categorizing. Nope, maybe, no, yeah, no. And I just thought, oh no. And then I sort of stepped back and I looked through them again and I looked through them again. And I kind of got to this place where I thought, and I know we say this, but I've never actually experienced this before, as I'm looking at myself and I don't recognize myself because in my mind, I am not how I appear in those photos. But I sort of had this moment of compassion and I just thought, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
You are there, and everything in your life, and you said this to me before too, actually, everything in your life has led you to be in that body in this moment. So it is what it's supposed to be. It's all good. It's fine. And that made me feel stronger. So in the desert, I felt super powerful. Yeah. And then after looking at the photos a few times, I was able to so in a way, I was trying to I guess we said keep them separate, but in a way also kind of bring them together where I can remember how I felt in those photos, but I can look at myself with more compassion and acceptance, which is what I was really working hard to get. It's still not totally there, but I felt it coming a bit. I felt a little bit of kindness sneaking in there saying it's okay.
Yeah, good. I mean, I think that's a big challenge. I go through something very similar, when I look at photos of myself too. And I'm almost surprised every time. I still feel like I look different, younger or whatever than I actually look. And each time part of me still believes that that's the person who's going to show up in the photograph, and then it's damn, that's not what I thought, but seeing yourself with compassion and the body itself with compassion, I think that's really critical. And to me, of course, I'm not comparing the images to anything else. I thought that feeling powerful, as you said, I thought that really came through, visibly to an outside observer in some of those images, which I thought was great.
I think definitely I never would have done this except that you have been through this process for yourself. So you know what it feels like to capture images of yourself. You did lots of self-portraits. Even in that location, you've done self-portraits. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was a huge part of it too, for me, knowing that you have been on the other side of this. You know what it's like to be the subject.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through when you're working with people. So I appreciated that from you. I really felt like you were so open and understanding, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen, but there was zero judgment coming from you, which was great.
So to you, I mean, what is the value in an experience like this? And what made you want to seek it out in the first place? And then, did you feel like you got what you hoped for or expected, or something different than you expected from it?
Sometimes I don't really think that much before I do things. I can be quite impulsive. So if something feels right, I just say, okay, I'm doing that. And I think this was a great example of how trusting my instinct actually turned out to be the right thing, because it felt right at every single step. So one thing is, I do trust my instincts in a lot of cases. If I really feel strongly about it, then I'm just going to do it. And I think it's meant to be done. I don't have to explain that or justify that to myself or to anybody else. That's one thing. I think I must have had it's hard to say. I mean, it could have turned out differently. I just now, in retrospect, looking back to see what I got from it, that feeling of compassion for myself is something I think I needed. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how empowering, but also like there's been sort of a build-up through COVID of my level of anxiety. And I sort of gotten to the point where every day through the day, 24/7, I was anxious. I was just really ramping up. And it didn't seem like there's anything that I did that made it any better. And I hadn't traveled for many years, and I used to travel more for business, and I stopped traveling. Then COVID came. And, going to Hawaii, I was quite nervous. Am I going to catch the plane? Am I going to get caught in customs? Am I going to get all these things? This scenario, it's gotten worse as I've gotten older, right? All these scenarios play in my head. I got through Hawaii, came back, that kind of all went well, sort of calmed me down a little bit. And then heading out to California, all of a sudden, I arrived in California and I was like, chill, man. Like, we're good. We're good. I may be coming for a naked photo shoot in the desert, but for whatever reason, I'm actually feeling really pretty calm about it. And so that's why I kept expecting, I'm going to get nervous about it. Like, that's why I tried to set you up and say, no, I know there's going to come a point where it's going to hit me and I'm going to be shy and I'm going to retract a bit and not jump in with both feet like I want to, but I'm just warning you. And it never came. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, maybe because I am on vacation and I'm in California. So if you're going to be calm anywhere, this is the place to be. I spent time in the desert, spent time in the ocean. And I flew home, and it's been a week and a half and anxiety level 0. So something released, something was looking for a chance to just let go and stop holding on and stop being scared. And maybe this was the biggest thing that could present itself. Go be naked in the desert.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah.
So why be scared? Why be anxious? Consciously, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I always have found and believe that there's something kind of therapeutic about it. To go out naked and be photographed, you just have to leave a lot of things behind. And you're not leaving them behind for good, of course, but you're setting them aside more than just your clothes, obviously. It's sort of your whole, maybe, social identity, your biography, your life story, or whatever you want to set aside for a little bit and just be, just another living thing here on the earth. You can do that. I think it's good in that way, and it's also, I think, a way, and maybe this amounts to the same thing, but of sort of taking yourself less seriously, and I find that's always good.
I felt, I didn't want to overstate it, but if you think about vulnerability and what it might mean, I don't think it gets much, at least in a first world context, doesn't get much more vulnerable than taking your clothes off and walking in a completely deserted, geography in the desert where there's nobody with somebody you don't know.
Yeah.
That's about as textbook a case. And it made me feel strong.
Yeah.
It brought me strength as opposed to weakness or fear or, anxiety or, and I trusted you. So that makes a difference, obviously. But again, I trusted my instinct to trust you.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't worried about anything. Yeah. And I also thought if anything goes wrong, I can handle it. Right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You said, if we get lost, we're going to have to hike to the highway. And I'm like, oh, okay, then. If we do, then I'm going to be. But I said, I'm going to take your shirt. Right? I'm going to have to clothe myself at least partially before I head to the highway. But worst case, then we walk to the highway and we, hitch a ride back to your truck. Okay, that's fine.
Right. Yeah, as we move farther and farther away from left or close.
From a home base, yeah.
I kept looking around so I could remember, okay, wait, it's over there now. Yeah. Obviously the trust makes the whole thing possible. And maybe there's people whose instincts aren't always good, right? And obviously just the way you're describing the facts of what you did, somebody could get into a very different situation doing something like that, and so there's no wholesale, like everybody should do.
Don't try this at home. We're having a moment.
That's what I was trying to come up with. Yeah, I mean, you could think about it, and maybe it's right for you too. But initially I said, well, we'll go out to this place, and we could go to a different place tomorrow or something. And after that first morning, you just said, well, this was perfect, and if we follow it up with another time somewhere else, it might be less perfect. I want to just remember this. So let's not do any more photography, but let's go hiking. So we went hiking the next day. And that was great because that just shifted the relationship, getting to know each other back on a familiar footing. We talked a lot. It was really great because, you went from this person I'd never met to, somebody I feel like I kind of know. And
yeah, because I actually don't want to make that one-sided. So on my side, I went down to the desert to be photographed by somebody I didn't know. But on your side, you had this rando Canadian descending on you in the desert.
Yeah.
Who had decided she wanted a photo shoot, and you didn't know what to expect from me either.
I didn't. I mean, you talked about how when you told your friends what you're doing, and and some of them said, "What? Are you crazy?" And I told my friends like about the crazy Canadian woman who's coming down, and they're like, "Wow, that's really weird. What are you going to do?
I think
it all made perfect sense to us. I think.
Yes. Yeah, no, it did. And I think one of the moments that it locked really into place was when we were talking about, I don't think we had started talking about birds yet, but we were either talking about books or birds. And I said, oh, I happen to be reading, Mind of the Raven, about ravens. And you're like, oh yeah, right, by the German guy. And then we had a whole conversation because you had read the same book. And I thought, okay, This is like, it's a lock now. This is good. If he's read Mind of the Raven, we're in a good place.
I know. We had little moments of connection like that.
Yeah, not to mention Dogen.
And Dogen. So.
That was incredible.
I mean, I sort of mentioned Dogen in passing in an early email, and then you said, well, I tried to order a Dogen book, but it was going to take too long. But I found a PDF online, and I was like, wow, she's really reading Dogen. Okay, that's cool. And then you did. And then, we talked about the mountains walking the whole time. And the mountains were always sort of surrounding and visible. And you kept remarking on being out here in the high desert. You had just expected desert, but not so much the view of these mountains, some of which still have a lot of snow in the distance. And I liked really in some of the pictures of you that, you know, there's you, but there's the mountain also. And since that had really resonated with you, I think that sort of added something to the images.
Right. It's not an accident that he's a Zen poet and philosopher too, right? It just added this whole spirit of calm and reflection and slowing down.
Yeah.
It was really nice. That really struck a chord with me. When you mentioned it, it really I'm weird that way too sometimes. Like somebody will mention that, I'm like, oh, just dive into it. Like, but you know, it really resonated with me in a special way. And I think it was just the perfect sort of conceptual backdrop. Literally the mountains, and conceptually the mountains and water and earth it was stunning. It was a really beautiful read.
But you know what I was saying at the beginning about how the whole experience is really part of the collaborative work, and you know, and that goes up into looking at the photos, and then the final step maybe is sharing the photos in some way, showing them to other people. And so I'm wondering if you've had any further thoughts about that and what you might like to do with some of them.
Well, it's something that I had put on hold before I came to California, which when I returned from California, I reactivated because I felt kind of energized and excited. Was I've been taking a script writing class for solo show. I can't remember if I told you about this.
Yeah.
So, okay. So for Fringe Festival, so solo performance on stage, and it's some kind of story about, with photos kind of as a metaphor for what we choose to show, what we choose to reveal, like what we choose to reveal about ourselves, what we choose to hide, what we may think we're hiding, but actually other people can see. Okay. And I think after talking to you a little bit just now and my reaction to my photos, this sort of this dichotomy between how I see myself and how I really, when I say how I really am, I kind of think, well, just because the photo doesn't also define what really is either.
No,
it's a percent, right? Yeah. So it's kind of teasing those things out. Like, what are these representations of me? And that sometimes to expose different aspects of ourselves that maybe we don't always let out or don't acknowledge in ourselves. Maybe sometimes we have to get on a plane and fly to California, or that's what I did. I was able to, and so I did that. But whatever opportunity you have to put yourself in a situation that is quite different from your day to day, or what you think is where you should be or what you should be doing, any chance you have to do something different than that is going to shine light on some aspect of yourself you can choose to look at or not, but it's going to reveal something probably that you didn't know. We've made it so outrageous that, I've gotten the comment a couple of times when I said, no, I was actually really comfortable, surprisingly comfortable. Oh, are you a nudist now? No. Like, no, it's just a natural part of being a human being. It doesn't turn you into something. It's just.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. I get the same question sometimes. And it's no, that's not where I'm coming from. And it's not like an identity for me in that way. And if it is for some people, fine, that's great, but it's something different. In our everyday, mostly, urban lives, that's probably true, except for all the people for whom it's sort of a totally normal matter of course. And so you can be one of those people for a morning and then you're done,
So thank you so much for being game to be a part
Great.
of this.
I'm looking forward to whatever comes next.
Awesome.